Hello friends, today I'm going to introduce you to archetypes. Before we get into it, I would just like to let you know that this is going to be a multi-part series. So, if you want to watch it in its entirety and you are not already subscribed, make sure you do that and that you also hit the bell button so you get notified when the next video is up. Now, let's start with a basic definition. The word archetype stems back to Plato and the Greek word archetypos, or original form. Archetypes represent a primordial image, character, or pattern of circumstances that recurs consistently enough to be considered a universal concept or situation. But who coined this concept, and how did it find its way into the literary world? To start, we have to look at Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology. Jung was different from his contemporary Freud, largely due to his inclusion of religion and spirituality and dreams within the study of psychology. During his time, Jung of course developed many major concepts, but the widespreading and imaginative concept of archetypes was really embraced wholeheartedly by the literary world. The seed for Jung's idea of archetypes was planted when he realized that he had dreams that came from beyond himself. This concept grew as he observed that many of his patients had dreams that fell into patterns tied up in myths, legends, and fairy tales. The terminology Jung used for this concept began with primordial images, evolved to dominance of the collective unconscious, and eventually found its footing with archetypes in 1919 in his essay Instincts and the Unconscious. Within Jung's definition of archetypes, he leaves room for nearly infinite possibilities, describing them as patterns of psychic energy originating in the collective unconscious and finding their most common and most normal manifestation in dreams. While Jung would butt heads with contemporaries such as Freud, he allied with social anthropologist and folklorist Sir James George Frazer, who published his work The Golden Bough at the same time roughly that Jung was publishing Psychology of the Unconscious, a work which explored archetypes. The Golden Bough is a wide-ranging study covering mythology and religion, attempting to define the shared elements of religious belief and scientific thought, something Jung was very interested in himself. The Golden Bough was scandalous at its first publishing due to its inclusion of the Christian story of Jesus' resurrection in its comparative study. Even with this, however, the book inspired much of the creative literature of its time and still inspires writers to this day. For the sake of brevity in this video, which is quite hard to accomplish, I'm keeping my points about the Golden Bough minimal, but I do highly recommend taking a deeper dive into this influential work if you're able to. But back to Jung. Jung eschewed the concept of tabula rasa, which is the idea that we're all blank canvases shaped by our experiences. To Jung, we had individual predestinations shaped by our history and evolution, which manifested in archetypes. Archetypes are, in essence, our inherited potentials. In the literary world, we can draw upon these to create characters who will resonate with the reader on a deeper level. If you've read about archetypes before, you are likely most familiar with a set of 12, but Jung himself primarily identified 4, these being the persona, the anima or animus, the shadow, and the self. The persona is the outward face we present to the world. The anima or animus is the mirror image of our biological sex, so one's unconscious masculine side if one is female, and vice versa for biological males. The shadow is the animal side of our personality, similar to the id in Freudian psychology, and the self is the aspect which unites the entire experience. However, in the psychological aspects of the core, Jung would go on to list the wise old man, the child, the mother, and the maiden as well. To define his archetypes, Jung spent years observing and investigating the products of the unconscious in the widest sense of the word. This included delving into dreams, fantasies, visions, delusions of the insane, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Through these studies, he was unable to avoid recognizing certain regularities or types. And while we could house many of these traits within us, generally one archetype would dominate per person. Moving forward to Jung's works The Archetypes and Collective Consciousness and On the Nature of the Psyche, he would build on his initial concept, adding archetypical events such as birth and death, archetypical motifs such as the apocalypse and creation, and last but not least, archetypical figures. Today, these figures most commonly include the hero, the magician, the outlaw, the caregiver, the creator, the ruler, the jester, the lover, the everyman, the explorer, the innocent, and the sage. And there's your 12. From Jung, there were multiple other key figures in archetypes who took his concepts and used them as a jumping off point. Maud Bodkin would apply Jung's theory of the collective unconscious to poetry in 1934, while Canadian critic Northrop Frye would be the first to theorize archetypes in purely literary terms, most notably in his book Anatomy of Criticism, published in 1957. Prior to Northrop Frye's archetypical criticism, however, we saw the publication of The Hero with a Thousand Faces in 1949, perhaps one of the most referenced books for writers when it comes to deciphering the common plot of all hero myths. Its author, Joseph Campbell, used Jungian terms and expressed that the hero's journey to a strange new divine world represented the rediscovery of the unconscious, something we lose contact with in the process of growing up. Jung had stated that the ultimate aim of every one of us is to achieve a state of selfhood, which you could define as self-actualization, which can be directly related to the hero's journey here. The difference between Jung and Campbell, however, lay in that Jung saw myth as a part of therapy and a tool for the conscious mind to uncover unconscious meaning and its applications. Campbell, however, believed that myth was the cure for all of our woes, attributing nearly all human problems to the absence of myth. Campbell considered himself not only to be a psychologist, but a philosopher as well, and saw myth as the master key to everything. In new media, Campbell gained recognition in Hollywood when George Lucas credited his work as influencing his Star Wars saga. But that's not the only popular spot you'll see archetypes. Isabel Briggs Myers and her mother Catherine Cook Briggs created the Myers-Briggs personality type indicator with archetypes in mind. Caroline Myss has created archetype cards, including 80 different archetypes. The Enneagram test looks at 9 archetypes, and there's a list floating around out there of about 300 essential archetypes. On top of that, there is, of course, hardly a need to mention that you will find archetypes in every novel you pick up and read. Jung's archetypes were also popularized in brand marketing by Margaret Mark and Carol S. Pearson in their popular brand psychology book, The Hero and the Outlaw, published in 2001. So now that we've got a basic understanding of what archetypes are and their history, I hope that your interest is piqued. Archetypes can truly be a cheat sheet for the creation of excellent, or at the very least, relatable characters. And no matter how inexperienced or experienced of a writer you consider yourself to be, you can benefit from knowing about them. In my next archetype videos, I'll be breaking down each of the 12 types and discussing them in greater depth. But if there's anything in particular that grabbed you in this summary today, please let me know, and I may do a more in-depth video on that person or topic as well, just because all of this fascinates me so much, and there is so much to say about it. But for now, thank you for stopping by. If you're already a subscriber, it's great to see you. If you're new, I hope you're here to stay. Just a note that I will not be doing any sprints on YouTube this coming Saturday, but I will be doing a session next Saturday on the 16th before I run off to Calgary. If you're looking for sprints during the week, I recommend joining my Discord server, linked down below. We sprint Wednesdays and Thursdays, except when I'm away, but you can sprint when I'm away. I don't stop people from sprinting if I'm not there. But we will have 2 sessions coming up this Wednesday and Thursday that you can join in on. And they're excellent for productivity. Plus, it's Camp Rimo right now. So get your Camp Rimo writing in with me on Discord. It's a good time. Please remember to leave a comment, let me know what you thought about the video, or just say hi. Also, like, subscribe, hit the bell button so you actually get notified when I put out new videos. And last but not least, I hope that you are having a day that is just as wonderful as you are. Bye.